It's no secret to my regular viewers here that I am a huge Star Trek fan. In fact, something Star Trek related always seems to work its way into every video. That's why when I saw this delightful relic of the 90s pop up on eBay, I had to have it. This is the Star Trek Type 1 Phaser Mouse. Modeled after the personal phasers from Star Trek The Next Generation, they couldn't have picked a better device from the Star Trek universe to turn into a pointing device. The box promises a Windows-compatible mouse that provides authentic phaser sound effects and electronic phaser beam lights. And hey, it's standard Federation issue. Of course, I don't think we'll be using serial mice in the 24th century, mostly because we barely use them now. But hey, maybe they made a comeback. So let's see what the next generation of pointing devices has to offer. According to the back of the box, this is the only computer mouse designed after a Type 1 phaser used in Star Trek The Next Generation. Its ergonomic design and sleek handheld size makes the Type 1 phaser the quintessential weapon of the 24th century. It's Windows compatible and features 2 action sound effects. Energize your workstation with all of the Federation issue accessories. That's right, this wasn't the only accessory released. There are floppy cases, CD cases, and various other items, all modeled to look like things out of the Star Trek universe. They were released to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation and distributed by GT Interactive. Unfortunately, it also uses a battery for the lights and sound effects, a battery that at this point is almost 25 years old, so we may be in for a mess. Well, enough admiring it from afar. Let's get up close and personal. Oh man, this thing looks awesome. I had the toy based on the Type 1 phaser as a kid, and this feels way better. Well, before we get to using it, let's see what the battery's done after all these years. And wow, we dodged a bullet. No battery leakage. It uses a standard CR2032 battery, the same type used by old motherboards to store BIOS settings. So we'll drop a fresh one in it and see if it still works after all these years. And would you look at that? Lights and sounds. The original toy always felt oversized to me, but this on the other hand feels like a great little handheld device. So right away we know that the soundboard and mouse controls are separate, since it can make sounds and flashlights even when the computer's not connected to it. It sports 2 separate sound effects, switchable by pressing the settings buttons and then triggerable by pressing the trigger. I don't think there was a lot of fine detail in the actual phaser, but this mouse seems to get it all right anyways. The 2 mouse buttons are separate from the phaser buttons. While it doesn't blend in perfectly, the placement will make a lot more sense and make the mouse a lot more usable. Another detail added that I agree less with is the Star Trek The Next Generation logo underneath the main fire button. It definitely takes away from the overall appearance, and I think it would have been better served modeled into the bottom of the mouse. Alright, enough admiring it, let's see how well it performs as a mouse. Since it's just a standard serial mouse, we don't need any special software to get it up and running in Windows, which is fortunate because the original installer disk was missing from the box. And wow! My first impression is very positive. It moves very smoothly, almost gliding, and the weight and balance of it feels pretty good. Now, obviously with the extra buttons and stuff on top, it doesn't feel as ergonomic as a, well, computer mouse. But as far as novelty devices go, this one ain't bad. Of course, if we're going to use this mouse in a game, it only makes sense to use it in a Star Trek game. And Elite Force is the de facto Star Trek first-person shooter. And before we get started, I just have to set this phaser to kill. This is such a surreal experience. I'm using a Star Trek phaser mouse to shoot a phaser. It just feels right. And yeah, it lacks modern features such as more than 2 buttons or a scroll wheel, but for the late 90s, this was definitely usable. I gotta admit, as a Star Trek fan, this thing really makes me smile. It looks good, and it actually works well. I'll be keeping my eyes open for the rest of the accessories in the series. After all, I've got plenty of floppies and CDs kicking around, and I always need a place to store them. Hey, thanks so much for watching all the way through. Don't forget to subscribe here if you're new for all sorts of future retro tech videos. And if you had one of these when they first came out, let me know how you liked it when it was new. I'll see you back here in a couple of weeks for another Print and Play retrospective.